What if a leader was offered the world's most prestigious prize, and he turned it down? It's not about the prize. It's about the message. In the heart of West Africa, a statement has been made that's sending shockwaves from Paris to Washington. A statement so profound it represents a total break with the old rules of the world. Now, to be clear, no official prize was ever actually offered to Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. But his actions, his entire philosophy, are a symbolic rejection of the whole system of Western approval. This isn't just a headline, it's a line drawn in the sand. It's the anchor for a radical new era of African independence, and the world is struggling to figure out how to react. This one, defiant idea, is the key to understanding why Africa will never be the same. To get why this is an earthquake, you first have to understand the ground it's shaking. For decades, Burkina Faso has been a land of painful paradoxes. A nation sitting on some of the world's richest gold deposits, yet its people were trapped in poverty. A country whose name means land of upright people, but it was often forced to bend to the will of foreign powers. This was the quiet crisis of modern colonialism. A system where French military bases dotted the landscape, supposedly for security, while French corporations extracted the nation's wealth. For generations, gold flowed out and dependency flowed in. The country's own resources were refined in Switzerland and Dubai, sold for huge profits on the global market, while Burkina Faso itself saw almost none of that money. All while the security situation was getting worse, with extremist groups controlling huge parts of the country. A crisis many felt was being made worse by the very foreign forces claiming to solve it. This was the old world, a cycle of exploitation, crippling insecurity, and a government that seemed powerless, or maybe unwilling, to break free. It was a story familiar to many across the continent. A story that was just waiting for a new ending. And then in September 2022, the story changed. A young, determined army captain named Ibrahim Traoré took power. He was only 34, but he spoke with the conviction of a leader twice his age, and his words echoed the ghost of a national hero, Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary icon of African self-reliance. Like Sankara before him, Traoré didn't just talk about change, he made it happen. His first move sent an immediate, unmistakable message to the world. He demanded the departure of French troops who had been stationed in the country for years. He tore up the military agreements that had tied his nation to its former colonial ruler and declared that the people of Burkina Faso would secure their own land. It was a direct challenge to the way things were done. A clear signal that the days of foreign military oversight were over. The people, tired of the violence and the interference, rallied behind him. For them, this wasn't a coup, it felt like a liberation. Traoré wasn't just another soldier. He was the potential heir to Sankara's revolution, a leader who dared to finish what was started decades ago. This is where that thought experiment, rejecting a big prize, becomes so important. It's a symbol for Traoré's entire philosophy. Africa does not need validation from the West to know its own worth. Dignity can't be awarded by the same powers that have profited from its absence. This idea is the engine behind every radical reform his government has rolled out. First, economic sovereignty. Traoré's government declared that the nation's gold must finally serve the nation's people. Plans were set in motion to build the country's first ever national gold refinery, a project to process the raw gold right there at home. No longer would Burkina Faso just export its raw wealth and watch the real profits get made somewhere else. That move, plus revising mining contracts, is about making sure the money from the nation's soil rebuilds the nation itself. Then came the agricultural offensive. Traoré launched a nationwide battle for food self-sufficiency, calling on citizens to farm every available piece of land. The government began investing in modern equipment and financing for farmers, a patriotic push to end their reliance on food imports and achieve real food sovereignty, a core part of Sankara's original vision. Militarily, Traoré put his faith in his own people. He expanded the volunteers for the defense of the homeland, a civilian force, creating a people's army to fight insurgents. The message was clear: The security of Burkina Faso is the job of Burkina Faso alone, not foreign soldiers. And finally, he smashed the old alliances. Traoré pulled Burkina Faso out of the G5 Sahel, a French-backed group, and instead forged the alliance of Sahel states, AES, with Mali and Niger. This is more than a military pact. It's a new center of gravity in West Africa. It's a bloc of nations determined to go their own way, free from the influence of old colonial powers and Western-led groups like ECOWAS, which they announced their withdrawal from in January 2025. The AES has even signaled its intent to withdraw from the International Criminal Court, seeing it as a tool of Western influence. Every single one of these actions is a chapter in the same story. A story that starts with symbolically turning down a prize and ends with the real work of building a sovereign state. And you can bet the world didn't watch quietly. The reaction was immediate, and it was split right down the middle. In Western capitals, alarm bells were ringing.
French officials worried publicly that without their presence, the state itself could collapse.
U.S. military leaders labeled Traoré's government an illegitimate junta. The old powers didn't see a sovereign leader. They saw a dangerous disruptor tearing up the rulebook that they wrote. But across Africa and in the diaspora, the reaction was electric. Traoré's defiance has become a huge source of inspiration. You see his face at protests in neighboring countries. His speeches are shared millions of times online, boosted by a generation of young Africans who are starving for leaders that talk about dignity, not dependency. He's become the face of a new Pan-Africanism, a symbol of resistance against centuries of exploitation. This Traoré effect is creating a continental shift in thinking. It's encouraging citizens to demand more from their own leaders and to question governments that are seen as puppets of the West. And while some online claims about his policies are exaggerated, the core of his message is hitting home. He is proving that an African nation can say no, pivot to new partners, and not only survive but command a new kind of respect. But this revolution isn't without a heavy price, and it would be dishonest to ignore the serious concerns. The security crisis that Traoré promised to solve is still brutal. Insurgent groups continue to carry out devastating attacks, and despite the army's efforts, they still control large areas. Some reports even suggest the violence has gotten worse in the last couple of years. And this is where the story gets complicated. Human rights groups have sounded the alarm over a growing crackdown on dissent. Journalists and critics of the government have been arrested or, in some cases, forcibly conscripted into the army to fight on the front lines. Freedom of the press has been squeezed, with foreign media outlets banned and local reporters forced to censor themselves. Traoré himself has admitted that Burkina Faso is not a democracy. His supporters say these are tough but necessary measures in a time of war. They argue you can't build a new house using old broken tools. But critics are asking a chilling question. Does the noble quest for sovereignty justify sacrificing freedom? That's the complex, uncomfortable reality at the heart of this transformation, and it can't be overlooked. This is the story the mainstream media often struggles to tell. The nuance, the inspiration, and the hard questions. It's a story being written in real time by Africans themselves. If you believe these are the stories that need to be told, that the conversation around African self-determination deserves a global platform, then help us get this message out there. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to see what's really happening. Your engagement helps fight back against the simple narratives and supports a more honest telling of this historic shift. The story of Ibrahim Traoré is bigger than just one man. It's the story of a continent at a crossroads. That symbolic rejection of a prize was never about a medal. It was a declaration of psychological independence. It was a statement that Africa's future will be built with its own hands, measured by its own standards, and validated by its own people. The path Traoré is on is a dangerous one.
He faces internal conflict, massive external pressure, and the real risk of his government sliding into authoritarianism.
Whether this bold experiment leads to a true renaissance for his people or becomes a cautionary tale is a question only history will be able to answer. But one thing is certain, the ground has shifted. The spirit of Sankara is alive in the Sahel, and a powerful message has been sent to the world. A message of sovereignty, dignity, and unapologetic self-reliance. After Ibrahim Traoré, Africa will never be the same.